using machine learning and artificial intelligence to match the right programmer to the right job. I'm Tonya Hall for ZDNet and Tech Republic, and joining me is Harj Taggar, CEO at Triplebyte. Welcome, Harj.
Hi, Tonya. How's it going?
Good. So what does Triplebyte do, and what drove you to start the company? What problem were you trying to solve?
Cool. So Triplebyte is a marketplace, a hiring marketplace where we connect people who are looking for jobs with companies that are hiring, essentially. And we're sort of specialized in that. We focus on helping software engineers find technology companies to join. And what's sort of special about the way that we do it is, rather than taking people's resumes, reviewing, having a team of recruiters who are reviewing resumes and then sort of saying to the companies, hey, like, here's an MIT graduate or here's someone who works at Google. We've built our own technology to deliver online tests that, without looking at someone's background, assess how strong their skills and knowledge are across various different areas. And we use that data to match them to roles at specific companies where we think their skills will be most valued, which means they're most likely to get hired by those companies. So the net result here is that companies get this information about engineers that they can't get anywhere else. And it means that they often end up hiring people who they would never have found otherwise because they wouldn't have passed a traditional resume screen.
Then why are traditional resumes becoming obsolete?
I think it's less that they're becoming obsolete and more that the demand for really skilled people, especially in technology, isn't going to be met by just using traditional resume screening processes. And by that, what I mean, here's how I think about it. Like, a resume screen is really looking at, honestly, in brutal truth, is looking at the school you went to and the companies you're working at today. And fact of the matter is, the companies you work at today are also largely determined by the school you went to. And schools that have sort of elite institutions like your Ivy Leagues or your sort of top colleges, those are the ones where those graduates have the most options available to them, right? But in order for those schools to be elite institutions, they have to have a fixed number of people graduating each year. Like, Stanford can't say, hey, we're just going to double the size of the class this year and like make more money in tuition fees, because lots of parents will be quite upset about the fact that Stanford's no longer selective, right? And I think what that's caused is, in today's world, every company is becoming a technology company and needs to hire technical talent, right? So there's just more demand for this than ever. And you're also just seeing the tech companies themselves have bigger scope than we've ever seen before, right? Like, Amazon isn't just selling books anymore. It's like kind of running the internet. Like, Facebook isn't just a website for college students. It's like a multi-$100-billion company that's launching satellites into space. So I think you've got more demand for this skill than ever, and you can't meet that demand by just hiring the people out of MIT and Stanford, or the ones who are already at Facebook and Google. So I don't think it's that the resume screen is becoming obsolete. There's still lots of value in looking at resumes and hiring those people if you can, but it's not going to scale, and it's not going to work over the next 10 years to only hire people from particular backgrounds. Companies are going to have to find ways to identify talent that doesn't look like it's got the traditional credentials that everyone's after.
Tell us about the technology you use to evaluate and screen.
Cool. So we use adaptive testing technology, which essentially means it's very similar to, if you know about the GMAT or the LSAT. Like, the concept is that there's a test online where it's a series of timed questions, and each of the questions is multiple choice. The question that you get asked next depends on how you've answered the question so far. So it's all done by an algorithm in the background, which determines, okay, like, hey, you're answering these questions quickly and easily and accurately, we should ask you harder questions, or in the opposite direction, right? And so at the end of this sort of test, we've got this really accurate read on where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, and within the areas you have strengths in, how strong are you compared to everyone else that's completed that test. And what's kind of cool is, rather than having a human sat there sort of grading your test or telling you if you passed or failed, we have a machine learning model that takes all of the information from that test and compares it to every engineer that's ever gone through Triplebyte and gone on and interviewed at our companies and how they did at those companies. So we can tell very quickly, it looks like you're a really strong engineer who's going to receive offers or want to be hired by this set of companies. And so we'll direct you to those companies so you can focus your energies there.
What hiring patterns are you seeing for engineers, and why is demand higher for product-focused programmers?
Great questions. Hiring patterns that we're seeing, there's two questions tying together. There is more demand for product-focused engineers than ever. And I think what that really means is that an increasing number of technology companies today aren't necessarily solving hard underlying technology problems. They're solving problems that are more about how do you create a great user experience, how do you build a web app that people love using, and how you differentiate through the experience and delivering like a really, really awesome experience to your users and your customers. Slack, probably a great example of this, right? There's like however many messaging enterprise apps out there. Slack really excelled and has taken off because it had that really great experience. And I think that kind of engineer isn't so much someone that can build a database from scratch and really understands memory management and low-level systems and all these kinds of things. That engineer is someone who knows how to build the technology, but thinks about, maybe I should build things this way so it's more intuitive for users. And those are actually the kinds of problems that many software companies today are trying to solve, and that's how they differentiate and take over markets, is like in the user experience, which is why companies really want these product-focused engineers. But just slightly different, if you give another example, like Google as a company, huge successful company, but what they needed early on was not so much that, because like their product was just like a text box on a web page, not like super complicated at start. Like the magic in Google was all about giving you the best possible search result, and that was a very hard tech problem, right? Like how do I index the entire internet and deliver you the results that are best? That's a very different type of company, I'd say, to just, for example, like an Airbnb, like another huge valuable company. But Airbnb's challenges are more in how do we make the listings look great? Like how do we make it really easy for you to book a place? What do we do when you request to stay at a place and the host says it's not available? Like these kinds of things are different challenges to like the Google challenge. I think more startups today than ever fit that sort of Airbnb camp of where it's technology to solve a user pain point as opposed to hard technology problems.
So what's the current state of coding boot camps? They've been historically a great place for talent. Are they still a viable way to obtain knowledge and experience?
The truth is, I think most of a lot of the coding boot camps are struggling, and I think you're seeing a lot of consolidation in that market where they're either shutting down or they're getting acquired. There's a lot of M&A activity going on there. The reason being, I think what we found is that for a period, I'd say especially between 2014 to sort of end of 2015, there's sort of a flood of these boot camps all springing up and sort of flooding the market with lots of junior level engineers who had sort of learned to code over 3 months. And I think what companies saw is that, yes, a very small percentage of these graduates were actually able to come in and start working as engineers, but most of them actually weren't. Like, although they might be able to interview well, or they may be able to sort of do very basic things, they didn't actually have a fundamental knowledge or an understanding of what they were doing, which meant that the work they did required someone else to come in and sort of fix it later, or they required a lot more mentorship to actually be productive. And I think we saw through Triplebyte platform, the sort of demand for these bootcamp graduates started going down over time. I think what the boot camps did in response is they started moving away from this pitch of, hey, if you've never programmed before, we'll teach you how to do it in 3 months and we'll get you a 6-figure job. And they started becoming a little bit more like, hey, if you've got some technical experience, maybe you used to work as a programmer, maybe you're doing something technical now, maybe you're already working as a software engineer and you want to brush up on the latest technologies, then we'll admit you and we'll help you brush up as opposed to like learn this for the first time. So I think you're seeing the graduates of these boot camps, the class size is becoming slightly smaller and the experience level of the graduates is becoming a little bit more senior. So they're not really so much boot camps in that sense anymore. I think that to some extent, I think they're almost a little bit more like finishing schools. Like they're like, hey, like I've got some basic knowledge. Maybe I'm rusty. Maybe I haven't worked for a while. I'll go do a boot camp. I'll like brush up on a couple of months and then I'll come out and be ready to find a job. And I think that's where the boot camps are going more towards.
What do you see for the future of tech worker demand, and what should an entry-level programmer expect out of their first job?
I'm highly bullish that just demand for tech workers, and that defines specifically as engineers and software engineers, just continues rising. I think, but potentially indefinitely, because I think just software is just getting into every single market. I think it's not going to be that long before we stop referring to like the tech stocks and the tech companies, because every company will sort of essentially have to have some in-house technical capability and expertise. And actually, there's a sort of interesting thing here that there's some studies I think that were done in Scandinavia where it showed that actually the more software engineers that start getting hired in sort of a particular economy, the more demand it actually creates. Like it's not like there's not sort of this, it's not this effect of where sort of supply reduces demand. It actually seems to increase demand. And so I think there's a good chance that that effect will take hold here too. What someone should expect from their first entry level engineering role is, being really frank about it, when you start out off, especially if you join a larger company, you're going to expect to be doing a lot of the work that the more senior engineers don't want to do, which tends to be the less intellectually interesting work. And what you get, kind of the deal you're making there is you're doing the work that the senior engineers don't want to do because they want to solve the more interesting problems, and you're kind of maybe making their code nicer, or you're fixing bugs, or you're doing sort of low level work, but they'll mentor and train you in like the tools, best practices. You'll kind of learn things that you can only learn from working with more experienced engineers. I think that's what you should expect if you're joining a slightly larger, more established company. If you join a startup company as a junior engineer, honestly, I think, well, your experience could vary massively depending on the startup, but I think you can expect to be thrown in at the deep end and just be given like real responsibility off the bat in a way that you won't at a larger company. But the trade-off you're making is you won't get as much mentorship and guidance and all that stuff, for the most part.
Harj Taggar, CEO of Triplebyte, getting coders hired. Thank you so much for shedding some light on this industry. If somebody wants to connect with you, maybe they want to find out how to get, go through the process or get hired or just connect. How can they do that?
Sure. I use Twitter a lot, so you're welcome to tweet me. I'm at Harjeet. That's my full name. I also check my email a lot, so I'm harj@triplebyte.com. So feel free to email me there also.
Sounds good. And if you guys want to find me and more of my interviews, I'm right here on ZDNet or Tech Republic, or go to my website, tonyahall.net. I've got links to all my social sites. Thanks for watching.